Good afternoon and welcome to the November 12th, 2025 Calaveras County Water District's Board meeting. If you'll please rise for pledge of allegiance, if you're able to. Again, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, and justice for all. Thank you. Director Davids is not joining us today. Davison is not joining us today. I'm just messing up everybody.
Yeah. It's that.
So, Rebecca, we do a roll call?
Director Robertson,
Here.
Director Ratterman,
Here.
Director Thomas,
I'm here.
and Director Garamendi.
Present. All right, we'll move on to item number 2, which is public comment. Now, I think we got 3 or 4 people in the audience. The way this will work is if you got an item that's not on the agenda, this is the time to talk about it. If there's an item later on in the agenda, I'll ask you to stop and bring that item up. I also want to make the point that this is not a discussion. We have to address the items on the agenda. You are welcome to talk to us, but for the most part, there won't be a back and forth. So you're all good with that? I'm going to start by giving you 3 minutes. If that's not enough, we'll be a little flexible. It's a small crowd today. Public comment. Who would like to speak? Sir? Or come on down. Hang on, wait till you get there. If you don't have to introduce yourself, you're not required to, but it's nice.
Anyway, so I just came to address my feelings about the rates and everything. There's a lot of people out there, older people that are retired. We are that having, struggling to afford everything, especially nowadays, everything's expensive. So I don't know if you guys are planning on postponing any of the other rates or the raises or coming up with some kind of program for people that can't afford it. Because I've heard a lot of complaints all over the place wherever I go. I don't know if you guys heard that. Anyway, I just want to address that. My name's Lloyd Haney and I live in Wallace. So I don't know, will that be on the record here or?
Yes, it will be recorded.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Lloyd. Anybody else like to make a public comment? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Christine Davis. I live in Valley Springs. Pretty much the same comment as this gentleman. And also, as you guys know, that your salaries were posted. And I was wondering where maybe your moral compass was. People are hurting. People are having a hard time paying their bills. And there have been numerous threads, Facebook for one. I don't know if anybody's cared to look at some of those comments, but you probably should.
Thank you. Any other?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you gave a directive that this is not to be an interchange here, but I would like to clarify if you were talking about our salaries, the board members. Okay. Well, I just want it's a common misconception that we get a huge salary, and I can assure you we do not.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Clarification. Seeing no further, is there any public comment online? Yes. Please. Mark?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Carter.
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments. First one has to do with the meeting times that you folks are holding at your board meetings. We got so many people out here that are working for a living, and they can't attend meetings at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I know this has been brought up before, and I am hoping that the board has taken, at the heart and for consideration of moving them out later in the afternoon or early evening. The second comment I want to bring up today, it's regarding the expansion into Rancho Calaveras on the sphere of influence changes through LAFCO. The concern that I have is that there was a memorandum of understanding between CCWD and school district that was put together that stated no residents who live along the alignment will be required to connect to CCWD sewer service. And if that's the case, why did CCWD expand the sphere of influence to absorb all the properties along that trunk line? And I also wanted to bring up too that because LAFCO was involved, it appears that the notification process wasn't followed. The notification process, from my understanding, is that there was a small notice in the daily news, but there was no notifications directly to the property owners involved. And that is a violation of LAFCO notifications. So I wanted to bring those items up for your consideration, and I'll pass it on to the next folks right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carter. Is there any other comments online? No? All right, last call internally, if you'd like to. 3 minutes.
Hello, Roxanne Freitas, the ratepayer. I just want to first start by saying thank you for everything that you do. I really appreciate it. I wanted to reiterate on what she had said about, or he said, I'm sorry, about the meetings. I did address with Mr. Nathan via email about the meeting times being 1 o'clock and it being not fair for the people that work and commute and can't make it to the meeting at 1 o'clock. He did say that you guys have talked about it in the past about changing the meeting, but there were other factors. Factors are, but I did ask that it be brought to the agenda for discussion so that we can move forward on that topic alone. It's not, when you work and your boss doesn't allow you to get online during working hours at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, very hard to attend that way, and it's very hard to attend in person. I personally like to be here in person. I like to be here visually. I don't want to be online. That it's a great option, but it doesn't work for me. But if I were working, I'm retired, that wouldn't work with your boss if you're going to attend a meeting during work hours. So something to consider. Hopefully you guys can add it to the agenda sometime soon, and within the next board meetings. I did put a request in, and that's all I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very well. That concludes public comment. We'll move on to the consent agenda. These items are routine, non-controversial. Move them as one group. If any board member would like to have an item removed, please let me know. Anybody want to remove anything? Nope. Are there any public comment on the consent agenda? Any public comment online? Very well. Motion?
Move for approval.
Motion. Second?
Second.
Second by Director Raderman. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries 4-1 absent. New business. Back, I'll hand it back over to you. Or who's doing the recognition of Corinne? Skrbina, sorry. Okay. For 24 years of service with the district. Jeff?
Corinne, you will make it today? I don't think so.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. Jeffrey Meyer, Director of Admin Services. I'd like to first say that before I read this resolution, I started working in February 2008, 7 years after Corinne, and we worked in the same department all that time, except for my hiatus when I ran away for 3 years. But I have the utmost respect for her as both an individual, an employee, and a dedicated employee of CCWD. And her unwavering commitment to ratepayers and our customers. To her, they come first, and it's been that way ever since day one. So with that being said, I'd like to read this resolution. Please bear with me. Whereas Corinne Skrbina has honorably served the Calaveras County Water District for over 24 years as a customer service representative, bringing not only exceptional dedication and professionalism, but a deep wealth of historical knowledge that has helped preserve institutional memory and guide colleagues through evolving practices and policies. Corinne became a member of the CCW team on August 27, 2001 as a customer service clerk and quickly became lead of the customer service representatives for her career with the district. Corinne not only has a legendary ability to recall CCWD history, and trust me, she calls me out on things I said 5, 10, 15 years ago, and the way it has always been done, but her memory is like a steel trap. If you say a street name and a number, she can tell you what color the house is, who lives there, if they have a fence, and even the dog's name. Her knowledge of the district entire system is inevitable, and whereas Corinne's dedication to the fair and equitable treatment of our ratepayers is unmatched and has withstood the test of time and of rate studies. And whereas because of Corinne's vast knowledge of the customer service processes and the district history, she is known to say that she bleeds blue for the district. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Directors of the Calaveras County Water District extends its heartfelt appreciation to Corinne Skrbina for her enduring commitment, invaluable historical insight, and consistent service to our ratepayers. Corinne's legacy of knowledge has left a lasting imprint on the district and will continue to benefit future generations of staff and community members. And everything in there, this is actually an understatement of what she has meant to this district. And she, like I said, she has the ability to call me out on multiple things when it comes to rules and regulations. She's by the book, but the reason for that is everybody gets treated the same way. And that's been her mantra ever since she's been here. So I'm very proud to have known her all these years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it's a wonderful compliment to the organization in the county that have employees that stick with us this long.
Yes.
Any comments from the board?
We need a motion to approve this.
Very well.
I'd like to, for any employee that's been, hangs around for 24 years and dedicates their life to CCWD, I'd like to show her our heartfelt appreciation. And with that, I'd like to make a motion, this recognition for Skrbina.
Yes, let's get the name right, not Skrbina. Skrbina.
I would like to second that.
Second by, is there any public comment? Michael, would you like to make a
I would
comment?
just, reiterate what's in the resolution, but we're gonna miss Corinne, that she's just she's been such a big part of the district for a long time, since my time here. I met with her early on, when I started here, and she's never afraid to tell me what she thinks, and I always, appreciated and her insight. So, she will be missed very much.
Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, we have a motion to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought
I don't think she was asked. Thank you. Thank you. Very well.
She could have made it.
Thank you very much, Jeff. All right, item 4B, discussion direction regarding McKays Reservoir dredging sediment placement, Arnold Wastewater Treatment Plant. Kevin.
Good afternoon, directors. We spoke on this here at the engineering committee a week or so ago. But this is NCPA, the operator of McKays Reservoir. They're going to be dredging 100,000 cubic yards out of the McKays Reservoir to restore capacity from there's been some mudslides that come down there over the years. So So the proposed placement, NCPA came to us about using some property of at Arnold Wastewater Treatment Plant. Property is owned by the district. It's accessible by trucks.
Can you just hang a second? Hey, excuse me. You guys need to have a conversation, totally understand. Continue.
Yeah, and there's sufficient space there for them to put the spoils to place them. So the kind of sediment that they're getting out of the bottom of McKays Reservoir is here, the reservoir here in the middle on the picture. But it's silty and sandy material. They did some testing on the material and it appears to be non-hazardous. So in order to all that spoils, it'd be about 12,000 truckloads. And I think in the agenda item says 2026, but I think it's 2027. That they're actually going to be starting the work, the proposed work. And so they'd be hauling the spoils down like Love Creek and Moran Road to our treatment plant. And then the material will be spread at treatment plant at kind of a gentle slopes, 4-to-1 or 10-to-1s, depending on the contours. They gave us some proposed contours. There's minimal cost to district. This is an NCPA funded project. But it's a benefit to us as the dam owners for long-term success of the project. We just provide the access, probably some periodic inspections and any kind of oversight that we need. So kind of the next steps would be to finalize an agreement with NCPA for access and how they would and reimbursement if we have costs. And then they would complete the environmental review and secure any of the permits that are needed. So I was going to allow Jake from NCPA to come talk, but kind of what we're looking for today is a recommendation from the board to continue coordination between CCWD and NCPA on this effort.
Kevin, thank you, board directors. I'm here to answer any questions you have. We talked a little bit at the committee about it. Happy to explain the project as well. So open myself up for any questions. I'm not quite sure who could answer this question, but just how big of an area or do we have at the Arnold wastewater treatment plant for doing this? Is it going to be spread over several acres, square miles? And how thick?
We have a total of about, we own it, the site is, I believe it's about 92 acres roughly, but it wouldn't be covered that entire site. It's a much smaller portion.
Nick's looking at, we have the numbers on the exhibit. He's looking that up right now. Okay. And then how thick would it be? Let's talk about compaction. The report does and necessary to compact it and maybe come back and compact it again if the equipment that we're using isn't. So just kind of curious how much, and I do agree it's necessary. Great project. Good to partner with you to do something like this. And it does benefit everybody down the road.
Yeah, we're looking at about 15 feet. That's about the thickness. So 18.
15 feet.
15 feet thick at its maximum.
Okay.
So it'll be sloping up like Jake said.
There's
it's
a lot.
Gentle slope.
A lot of silt in it. So, all right, thank you.
So it was mentioned that a lot of this came from mudslides. Is there something that we can do to prevent the reservoir from filling up with silt as much as it did so quickly?
Yeah, excellent question. Yeah, it did come from a landslide. Coming over the sour grass 97 slide. It's a mixture of rock and other sands that is on Forest Service land. And so the Forest Service does manage logging permits, things of that nature. So hopefully since then they've employed some very good practices with culvert maintenance and such. But we know how all of that goes. We don't have direct control over those things. We communicate regularly though with the Forest Service. Obviously, wildfire management is a very important piece. And so we're as supportive as we can in all those efforts, both legislatively, and I know that CCWD is appreciating those efforts as well.
So very little is from silt buildup that comes down the river.
Yeah, so a lot of it came, about half came in 97. And then there's other large storm events that do scour, and there's also small slides off landslides. Again, not from either CCWD or NCPA lands, as in directly under our control.
Thank you.
The majority of that came down in that huge landslide at Ward's Crossing, right? It took down the whole hillside, the road, covered the bridge. Major.
Question. You have that's a lot of dirt, no two ways about it. Are we going to, I'd love to see a plot plan on where we're going to put it on the dirt. This is going to have a lot of really fines, a lot of fines in there. Do we have any intention, which could cause dust and other issues down there? Do we have any intention of putting organic material and reseed over the top of it? It's just a lot of,
We'll be looking
Sure.
to, we'll be looking to cap it and reseed those areas. We will be, assisting with that maintenance obligation. The actual, the dusty portion should be gone. Actually, a lot of that's been pulled out of the water as it passes down the river. But yeah, we will be ensuring that slope is stable.
okay. Just, could be some really fine stuff or not. That's,
If I could address the questions about the contouring and everything, we had some really excellent plats in the engineering committee meeting. It's disappointed we didn't have them here, but everything is very well contoured. There won't be any escarpments or anything. It looked quite well thought out to me. But considering considering our often mentioned budget constraints and stuff, have we thought about doing a sluice box on any of that stuff? Considering the price of gold now would encourage me to try gather up some of that.
Now illegal.
Huh? It's what, legal?
Illegal.
Why?
Because of
Section dredges are, but we're dredging it.
Is there organic material
Over the-
in the material pulling out of the reservoir?
Yes. Yeah,
So it's something we need to worry about,
Yeah,
or that's just the way we're leaving it.
yeah. So
Over time.
So there's two constituents. There's large timbers, which we'll be extracting and dealing with. Those will either be burned under permit or dealt with through other types of chipping or biofuel operation. But yeah, all the small pine needles and such would still stay in that material and be placed. I would say, Director Robertson, after just to follow up on the earlier question you mentioned, long-term, we are regarding the watershed management that you're pointing out. We are looking at working with the resource agencies to develop a sluicing plan, not related to mining sluicing, but to be able to pass the sediments downstream. And so that's a long-term effort. I think you're aware of that. And so we need to have a more long-term sustainable way to move sediments through the system. That is a foot prior to this.
Thinking.
the other questions from board of us?
Yeah, my final comment here is, Jake, it's good to see you here again so quickly, and come back anytime.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate your support.
Okay, so the item before, really quick, is there any public comment on this item? Very well. The item before us is to endorse the continued process, correct, Kevin? And
Yeah.
direct you to figure out the good deal.
Yeah, we want to kind of pull and see what the is.
This is not an action, this is not a board item, is we're good with this?
Yes.
I have
Very
no
necessary.
objections at all.
Like NCPA's active cooperation. Yes.
Okay, Kevin, there you go. Next item is item 4C, discussion regarding award of the contract to Arnold Sewer Master Plan. Kevin, you back up.
So the Arnold Sewer Master Plan, the district issued an RFP to update the Arnold Sewer Master Plan, looking at the capacity of the sewer system, the condition, and possible consolidation opportunities with some of our smaller facilities in the area. So the original master plan for Arnold was completed in 2005. So it's been over nearing 20 years. Verdantis Incorporated, the engineering firm, provide us a proposal for this project along with two other firms. Staff rated Verdantis and the two other firms. And it was really close, but after further review, Verdantis was selected because they provide the best value to the district. So the price for the Arnold Sewer Master Plan is $238,944, which includes the optional tasks for flow monitoring equipment. So the plan will assess the collections, which is our sewer system, and the treatment performance. Identify I&I, which is the inflow and infiltration. So we'll set up some monitors in the manholes to check the flows during winter time and in summertime conditions. Prioritizing our CIP. We have a couple upcoming projects on the CIP that this work effort will inform for the lift station projects and some potential support funding eligibility through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and others for long-term planning and consolidation efforts. We also need to look at the regulatory compliance as we're at the threshold of our existing general permit. So we'll be looking at what our options are for permits going forward. So funding for this project is in the engineering department budget. We have $150,000 set aside this fiscal year for this work effort. And then we'll have to put the remaining amount in next fiscal year budget. But we generally keep $150,000 for sewer and water master planning every year. So the recommendation is for the board to approve a resolution authorizing the general manager to execute the professional service agreement with Verdantis for this work effort.
Yeah, this, it seems like Carl Brustad at Verdantis has been pretty much lived at this. He was part of the original design in 2005 while working with HDR before he founded PBI. I know PBI has worked up there as well. And now PBI is bought out by Verdantis. I think it's genius to use the same firm and the institutional knowledge that they already have of that wastewater treatment. Certainly in favor of moving forward with them on this project.
Board comments?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions here. The next item in our agenda packet is to talk about this $10 million proposed $10 million loan. We're going to be paying Verdantis $200,000 plus. What happens if they come up with a master plan that costs $20 million? Are they going to be designing?
No,
The loan is specifically for the treatment plant upgrade, so it's a defined project. It's not the sewer system. So they're looking at, sorry, Ken mentioned the unit system. They're looking at the sewer system.
Yeah, they're looking at the sewer system, the lift stations, and the permits going forward approved on this plan.
So after the $10 million improvements of.
Yeah, there's lift station 2 and 3 in Arnold is on our CIP. That's to redo those lift stations. They're under capacity. We don't know how badly they are under capacity, and they're in failing condition, and they're along creeks and waterways. And then we also have 2 separate sewer systems within the Arnold area. There's available funding from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund to take enforcement from those and bring it to Arnold. There's a lot of options. And then since the original master plan was done, we've also incorporated the middle school in Avery. We incorporated some mobile home parks. We've incorporated Millswood. So we don't really have any good information on the system out there right now. And we're looking at possible ways to mitigate I&I because we have high inflows during the winter time. So we want to look at a project potentially to seal up some of that so we have less water to treat, thereby not triggering us to the next level past the general permit conditions at our sewer treatment plant. So there's a lot of things in the works that we need to look at in the Arnold system. Plus our master plan's over 20 years old. And so it's due for an update.
Okay, just so that I have this clear in my mind, the work that Verdantis will be doing will be sort of post-construction of the water treatment plant improvements.
They'll be ongoing during it, but yeah, they'll be looking at it as if that's completed because that's already past, it's already completed. So they'll look at what the next steps are for the Arnold service area.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying this.
I'll move for acceptance, authorizing the award of the contract for the Arnold Sewer Master Plan to Verdantis.
Second.
Motion second. Is there any public comment on this item? I want to compliment you on getting so many good bids. It reflects well upon this organization. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0-1. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, item number 4D, discussion action regarding authorizing a financing agreement providing for the issuance of a series 2025 wastewater bond anticipation notes. Jeff.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. Thank you for reading the title of this. I'll go a step further to make sure everybody understands the scope of this particular item. So I'm going to read actually the title of the resolution, which is authorizing and directing execution and delivery of a financing agreement providing for the issuance of the series 2025 wastewater revenue bond anticipation notes for the interim financing of the Arnold Wastewater Treatment Facility Improvement Project and providing for other matters properly related thereto. Now, I cannot claim responsibility for that title. Cameron Wiest, our bond counsel, who is online, wrote that up. So any complaints will go to him. It's that legalese stuff that we have to concern ourselves with. If you remember back in March of this year, actually prior to that, we submitted a grant loan application to the USDA Rural Development Corporation or Rural Development for the Arnold Wastewater Treatment Plant improvements. We received a loan. We did not receive any grant component. Now, when we received initial authorization, they issued what is known as letters of condition. And at the end of March, Michael signed those letters of condition. And as part of that, it was for a $10.2 million loan to complete construction and financing of the wastewater treatment plant. As part of the conditions, USDA requires the district to obtain interim financing for the project from a third-party lender, which will later be repaid. In years past, USDA we would submit claims on expenses and they would pay for us on an interim basis, say quarterly basis. And then that would roll into a loan. However, they changed their process. They only pay off the loan or have the loan in place, and in this case, pay off the interim financing when the project is complete and they sign off on it. So the district is responsible for obtaining interim financing, which is what this agreement is before you today. It's an interest-only loan, and then USDA, once the project has been accepted, will pay us for everything, all the construction costs, everything up to all the other cost of issuance, and the interim financing interest costs. So that is how USDA works now. They pay you once the project is complete. We don't have $10.2 million lying around. So we had to take out an interim financing package, and this is the item before you today. The notes are being structured as interest-only notes with a term of 3 years. Once, as I mentioned, once the project is complete, the district will issue long-term revenue bonds, which USDA has already approved in principle, and the proceeds will be used to be paid off and replace the notes. These are limited obligation bond anticipation notes. It's what a number of public agencies use when they know they're going to get revenue in the future. Bond anticipation notes. When I was with El Dorado County, we issued something similar, revenue anticipation notes, which we would use once we get in because when you have property tax revenues and all the other revenues, it comes incrementally, as you're aware, twice a year. While the counties need their money up front because they have ongoing payment issues on a monthly basis. So they produce or they issue revenue anticipation notes, which will be paid off once these property tax revenues come in. In this case, it's a bond anticipation note because we're going to issue a bond with USDA. So once that bond comes in, it'll pay off these anticipation notes. That's the terminology there. These bond anticipation notes are payable only from the takeout financing, which is this revenue, and then from net revenues from their wastewater enterprise fund. The resolution that is in front of you is being recommended for adoption, authorizes the issuance of these notes, approves the form of the financing agreement, which was included with your agenda package, and the adoption of the resolution is necessary for the district to move forward with the issuance of notes. There's a little side note on this financing agreement in form. It is not final. That is because the final numbers and final terms will not be known until we actually issue the debt, which will be the first half of December. And that's where all the numbers will be put in, and then it'll be provided for Michael for his approval. That's during the closing process. But they're basically, the form that you see here is going to be the form of the financing agreement. It's just a few minor particulars that are going to be changing. California Municipal Advisors, LLC, selected bids from 3 banks. The lowest and most responsive bid was from Everbank. The proposed notes during the life of the project with a balloon payment at the end. And the project, as I said, once it's completed by USDA. The notes are interest only with a rate of 4.2%. Their interest costs are approximately $700,000 over the life of the loan. That amount will be rolled into the loan. It is a 40-year low interest rate loan. But yes, we do have to pay for that interest as part of the overall loan, which is the unfortunate part of this new USDA program. The estimated cost of issuance is about $75,000. This will also be rolled up into the USDA loan. And so once the loan is complete, the interest financing, construction costs, cost of issuance, and interest expenses are all going to be part of that long-term loan with USDA. Now, that is 3 years out from now when we close the loan with USDA, once the project is completed. I will not be here, but Cameron Reist will still be available to close that loan. He's been signed on by the district to actually help prepare the loan with USDA and this interim financing loan. So he will be here to guide you through the entire process. And he's worked with the district since I started in 2008. He is available for any questions online and for any questions if you'd like to have a few that I can't answer. But what we're looking for is your direction to approve this resolution so we can move forward with the interim financing through Everbank.
Okay, Jeff, you go first.
Okay, in principle, it sounds great. 4.2% loan in this market sounds like a very good deal. My question would be, how sure are we on the timeline of the project? This may be for someone else to answer. If it's done early, is there a prepayment penalty? If it takes longer, what happens?
Cameron, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Jeff. Yeah.
I got an answer, but I'll leave it to the legal.
Well, I think the most succinct answer is that we've anticipated those possibilities in the structure. The way that it's set up presently is that Everbank has agreed to go ahead and fund the entire principal balance of this obligation. However, they've committed to a project fund interest reimbursement. In other words, they're going to invest the money in the project fund at 3.75%, I believe. And they'll give you, the amount of time that it takes, the 3 years for the bond anticipation notes to expire. to continue to earn that interest rate. So the only risk is between the 3.5% and the 4.2% on the loan interest rate. So it's mitigated to that extent. So it anticipates that if there are some delays, you're not going to be incurring and running the expense meter for an exorbitant number at that point. So that's the way that we've mitigated that aspect. In terms of prepayment penalties, there are for early call on this line. I think it's they need to make their money up because they don't charge fees for this loan. So the way they do that is they make sure that it's outstanding for, I think, a year and a half or so. I think at year 2, it's a par call. So there is no prepayment penalty after 2 years. And so if the project, was to be built before 2 years, you would just either pay the minor penalty for it, calling it out if you'd like to go into at 2-year mark, go into the USDA obligation at that time prior to the callability at par, or on a typical timeline, it's going to take about a year and a half to 2 to get this project fully built. So that's the idea on the prepayment penalty. And that's also the idea on earning interest on that project fund. It's very close to what you're paying out on this line of credit. That's the mitigation factor. So hopefully that addresses your question.
Well, no, thank you.
Jeff, I've got a couple questions, just so I understand what this loan is. In essence, we're not taking it out like line of credit where we draw on it incrementally. We have to, in this case, take the whole lump sum, which they're reinvesting in their bank, and our cost is the delta between the loan rate and the short-term interest rate that they're providing.
That is correct.
And the $630 some odd $1,000 that we're paying in fees, in addition, does that include the cost for issuing the loan with the, or whatever? I'll get to that next question. Issuing the loan with USDA is, or is that an additional cost that's going to come with that loan or bond?
The 75,000 cost of issuance is for this
Right.
loan.
And the other one that was 638, I want to say.
No, that was 700,000 in interest costs.
Okay, those are just interest costs.
Yes,
And
for the 3 years. And that is the total interest cost, but it doesn't factor in the delta between what we're going to be earning on our funds.
in the documents here, it says that once we've completed this project and USDA has approved it, we then issue the bond that USDA buys.
Cameron?
And I've never seen that. So can you break that out for me?
Yeah, that's correct. The way that USDA operates is they want a security, a fungible, negotiable bond or security. So at the time of takeout, when we're ready to go forward with the USDA transaction, we have to come forward to the board again with a full set of legal documents outlining the revenue bond structure and work with USDA and their general counsel to make sure that all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted. But we do this all the time, and the district has done this prior. So their general counsel is familiar with our work and your work at the district. And so there shouldn't be any issues there. If there are going to be issues, that's usually where it is. It ends up with the attorneys at USDA that are the final arbiters for the documentation. But this process has been tried and true for about 3 or 4 years now. This new process that they have where they require an interim financing. And so the takeout financing is just based on the letter of conditions that Jeff mentioned. As long as you're checking all those boxes and everything is in alignment and satisfied, at the end of the day, USDA is going to purchase this bond from the district, this revenue bond from the district in the par amount of $10,200,000. Those proceeds are going to be directly sent to Everbank to pay off the line of credit, and it'll just be a swap, one debt to the other.
Okay, well, it seems like the USDA is doubling down. I had complaints historically that they love to make sure the banks have lots of business. Sounds like they're going to get 2 bites of this apple. They're going to get it on the interim financing, and then the banks are going to get another. So taxpayers get hosed. But
I'm going to consider that an invitation to get on a soapbox here first, because it is really frustrating. There used to be waivers granted for this. I got in a fight with USDA about this probably 10 years ago. And I don't know if it's industry lobbying or what happened, but there are no more exceptions. interim financing required, even if you can self-finance, which in this case, maybe we wouldn't be able to, at least not 100%, because we have a small sewer fund. This is a huge project, but you shouldn't have all your options. This is just now a mandatory process that costs a lot of money. In fact, at one point I even asked Jeff, go back and run the numbers, because it's still a good deal. It is still a very good interest rate, but at some point, transaction cost center financing cuts into the beneficial interest rate that you get from USDA. Found that it's still better than what we could get for private sector financing, but not nearly as much as it otherwise could be. And yeah, I do feel like this is just, and this is one of those things that we have to do. It costs a lot of money that they're probably a more cost effective and more efficient way to do it.
I'm just thinking, because if we are going to go through the process of actually issuing a bond, revenue bond on this, there's tax revenue, but issue a revenue bond, we're doing that twice, paying double fees. We're paying for the line of credit, lack of a better term, and we're going to pay for the bond to do it with the no banker left behind plan with the USDA. Would it be, and you have run the numbers and said it's better to do that than say us just issue the bond now and save all this complexity? Is it pencil out to still be a better deal?
Well, if we issue a bond through the private industry, it's a 20-year term.
Mhm.
And it's a higher interest rate. The USDA is 40, and I believe, Cam, it was 2.75%.
Yeah, I was just trying to look that up. I believe that's exactly right, Jeff. It's
Right. And
2.75.
so I
Yeah.
get it, but that's a long amortization of that.
Right, but they do allow you to pay off early, USDA does. So if we mind our pennies and nickels, we can go ahead and set aside some money like we're trying to do with current ones and pay it down. The interest rate for loans right now, which is non-taxable, is north of 4, almost 5%. We got this because it's short term at 4.2%. So I think in this particular case, honestly, with the small sewer structure we have, we only have 5,400 sewer customers. We don't have a large base of revenues. I think this, especially if we're looking forward to maybe having to issue more debt in the future, I think this particular loan through USDA gives us much more flexibility in the future because we'll have lower debt service payments. Whereas versus if we go private for 20 years. Yes, there are costs involved in when we go the second round, but Cameron was already involved in the application process and issuing that. And there was some upfront costs in that particular one. And I'm not sure how much additional work will be needed on the backside. So when we go full, issue the revenue bonds with USDA, I don't believe the cost of issuance will be as high as this number. So most of the cost of issuance was with the first loan, with the loan application, grant application process, getting all the paperwork done for that. And the backside will be a lot less.
So, I mean, I'm not going to go through the 70 pages of loan documents in front of us. So you've taken a look at this, do internally, going externally, and you have determined this is the best choice for us.
Yes.
Okay.
They do help USDA rural development helps smaller districts who can struggle otherwise to find financing. And we've been pushing the financing process for quite some time.
I totally get that. I guess I keep coming back to if we have to go through a bond, Cameron, and go through the market to get this and then sell it back to the USDA, then we're clearly market worthy. Right? We proved that by being able to issue the bond.
Well, that's it. Cameron, help me out here for a second, because when we issue the bond, it goes directly to USDA. It doesn't go through a third party, correct?
Correct. Yeah, there's not a public market or a bank that's in the middle of that one. That's a direct transaction between the district and USDA. So
But there's still a credit test. The USDA,
Yes.
They've held that. We've been held that before from getting financing if our rates weren't high enough.
Yeah.
We couldn't demonstrate financial security. So I think, well, what was the interest rate we got on the water?
That was north of 5. I think it was, no, I take that back. It was 4.86.
Close to 5.
Yeah, close to 5. And that's a stronger enterprise system than the sewer.
Have they removed the fees that are generally associated with the USDA loan? They usually take several points off the top of their time and effort. Oh, USDA, they usually charge you a fee as well. That was under the old program. This is all brand new.
Yeah.
Never heard of this.
I don't know if USDA charges fees, Cameron.
No, they don't there's no fees involved in this program in the, what they call their environmental financing program. They do not charge points or fees. No.
And when we submitted the grant and loan application, we had to go through a complete financial review. So they reviewed everything. So everything's approved up front on our revenue bonds that we're going to be issuing in 3 years. So I don't anticipate much to go through that. As Cameron mentioned, we have letters of condition. We've been going through those. Kevin and I are going through them. Michael signed off on the letter of condition. So as long as we stay on top of that, I don't anticipate any problem.
Okay, just my experience is it's a little different because it's an old, different program.
Yes.
This is just a new program, and I do worry about, is this our least expensive option? And I trust you guys on that.
We did numbers. I reached out to
Believe me.
Cal Muni. They ran numbers, and yes, it is beneficial to us to especially on our annual debt service payments.
Okay, so I'm gonna learn more about what this USDA bond swap thing is.
You'll have to be around in 3 years.
Well,
Well,
let's see how that goes. It's up to the voters.
I mean, it's something we have, we've been talking about developing our list of topics. That is one of the things that's on the list we're considering including. It's not normally, our advocacy tends to be infrastructure funding, right, and some of the water policy and forest management issues. And so I think we would need a little bit of help on this one, but it to me seems like we should be asking these questions of our legislators. How did this require an interim about why? How did it show us how it benefits the public, and how does it benefit our ratepayers when it clearly maps false? And I think we should be talk to me about it and make sure we're asking this question.
Other questions from the board?
Just so that I understand this correctly, the spread between the 3.75% and the 4.2, that adds just a little less than $150,000 to the cost of the loan over the 3-year life of the project.
That's the net cost, correct? So that is actually, once we get it all figured out, said and done, the cost that we're going to have to finance would be the net cost. Because I believe the bond covenants in regards to that dollar amount that the funds being invested with Everbank, those can be used for a pay down, correct, Cameron?
Yeah, they can. At the very end of the project, whatever's left
Yes.
over, you can use those to pay it down. But the idea is it's a synthetic line of credit. It's just the opposite of a line of credit. You're doing the entire amount in advance, and then you're earning maximum interest. So there is a little bit of a delta there, but the concept is as you draw it down in the project fund to pay contractors and equipment and such, then you really are accruing interest at that 4.2%. It's only if that fund is in from day one, when it has the 10.2 million in it, that you have that slight delta. As it gets drawn down, you're actually paying 4.2. So it's in your advantage to replace it with the 2 3/4 interest from USDA as soon as possible. So there's no denying that speed is important in terms of construction speed, but you have seasonality that you have to look out for and schedules. But so that net number that Jeff's referencing is not going to be known until the draw schedule is done, until the project is wrapped up, and then look back and see what the actual interest expense amounted to at that time.
Yeah, understood. I trust your due diligence. I know how you work. I feel confident you found the best deal for us, but it really isn't a 4.2% loan. It's really a little higher than that because of the fees and the interest spread.
Yeah, what the bond people look at is true interest costs. And that is the fees associated with the cost of issuance and such. But you're right. And as Cameron mentioned, we won't know the true interest cost until the project is complete.
Understood. All right. Thank you both.
Okay, other questions from the board? Is there any public comment on this item? Sir?
Mike Rogers, from Valley Springs. Michael, my question on this is, you know, the faith and trust that we have in federal agencies to, you know, not change the rules of the game or decide in 2.5 years that we're in the burn that, well, you didn't do X, Y, and Z, so therefore we're not going to honor this. I mean, how etched in stone is the agreement, in other words, with the USDA, that they won't walk something back or say, well, the rate's no longer 2.75, it's now 4 or something like that. That would be my concern. You know, 5 or 10 years ago, I may not have had that concern, but I do today. Thank you.
That's probably a Cameron question, right? I mean, there's recourse in these agreements.
Of sue the
Yeah.
federal government?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, Michael, it's, the LOC is like the contract, if you will. And it's fairly clear cut that in the other document, that you signed, which is the federal government's holding these funds on your behalf. So they have literally put aside on their books, this $10.2 million, and it sits in abeyance in the name of CCWD until such time as either the letter of conditions are satisfied, or after, I believe it's after 5 years, there's a failure to satisfy, then the LOC becomes null and void. But that's the reason why Public Works and Michael, your team, Jeff's team, everybody's been working hard to make sure all those letters, all those conditions can be satisfied. And it is in that confidence that a lot of those conditions have already been satisfied, and there's just a few more to go, which are not ministerial, but they are not difficult to overcome. That the comfortability you can talk about it at that point. But you're right, it is a contractual matter. There are always potential aspects that could crop up and be contentious. But in all of our experience in working with USDA, I think we've said, yeah, this new regime is a little bit more difficult, but you can also say they're trying to just follow new letters and rules, and it's been a little bit concerning, but it doesn't mean that they're going to renege on these contracts in any way, at least to this point, as we sit here today.
And just to follow up on that, we work very closely with our local representatives, and Cameron has worked with them as well over the years, and they are behind us 100%. So our local reps are with, yes, the DC area can be a little bit different, but as Cameron said, a lot of agencies are using these, and it would create tremendous angst if the USDA changed the rules a little later on and retroactively applied those to existing contracts.
Historically, I would say we shouldn't worry about it, but it's news. Just watch contracts get canceled, but I guess we'll just put our full faith and credit in the US government.
Yeah, and I also would add, because part of what prompted us to reevaluate the value of this financing package was not just this cost, but the added cost, and Kevin can attest to this as well as Jeff, of dealing with USDA these days. It has changed a lot, and it is much more difficult to deal with than it used to. But I want to point out, as Jeff said, that is not a reflection of Tanya Galantin in particular. She is phenomenal. She's an advocate for us within USDA. She's been super helpful on multiple financings. And so there's the folks that we work with, kind of in the trenches, and then there's the the powers that be that are changing above them that have made things a lot more difficult. I think in the end, I agree with Jeff. This is still the best financing package we could do for this project. But it's getting closer.
If the public comment, is there a motion?
One more question for Cameron. What's your secret for growing ivy?
A good wife. I'm in my home office and that has a green thumb. Plain and simple.
Does that come with a motion, Jeff?
That does. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the discussion action regarding authorizing a financing agreement provided for the issuance of Series 2025 wastewater bond anticipation notes.
Second by Director Ratterman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 401.
Thank you.
Item,
Thank you, Cam.
thanks, Cam. Item 4E, discussion action regarding project closeout at Copper Cove tanks number 1 and 2. Kevin.
Good news.
Yeah.
Okay, today I'm going to talk about our Copper Cove, Clearwell and B tank projects. This is a very successful project. We had TNS Construction was our general contractor, and the project was completed under our budget and completed under the initial bid price. So that doesn't happen very often. So that was a good success story. So major upgrades of the project were at our Copper Cove water treatment plant. We had one aging welded steel tank. We added a second welded tank next to it, and then completely rehabilitated the existing clear well. So now we have operational flexibility of 2 clear wells and added capacity. And then also at our B tank location, we had an aging redwood tank that was rotting and leaking water pretty bad. We replaced that with a brand new welded steel tank, and then rehabilitated the welded steel tank at that location. So our subcontractor was Crosno Construction. They did all the tank work. They're the same company that did our Jenny Lynn tank and did a good job there too. We added site grading, fencing, and improved electrical equipment. So the final cost was 6.8 million. The original bid was 6.9 million. So we had nearly $100,000 savings over the original bid. This was funded by our water CIP loan that was issued. It was this water CIP loan number 1. So and we look forward to working with TNS Construction here soon again. They're the contractor on the Janeland Elementary School enforcement project that the school is just doing. So, so that action for today, we're requesting to approve and accept the project, and we'll file notice of completion with the county, and then release the retention to our contractor.
No, just none of the questions, comments. It's great to see a project that has no change order, no increased change order. But I do remember a change order coming through, and it was to decrease the cost, and then to come in under budget. Congratulations. I see Verdantis Engineering was working here. How were they involved through the TNS construction phase? Were they still involved during?
Yeah,
when they involved?
When we were short staffed for a little bit, we brought them in to do some more construction management than they would normally do. Because we were down to almost no engineers here for a little bit during the project. So
Right.
We had to bring them in to kind of run some of the day-to-day construction management that they originally we had them on to kind of do just the submittal reviews, RFI responses as far as the engineer record items. But then so that's kind of their task project.
Great, thank you. That's
Any questions? Is there any public comment on this item? So any public comment, I'll bring it back to the board. Any motion?
So moved.
Supervisor. Director Thomas,
second.
Director Ratterman, all in favor?
Aye.
carries 4-0-1. Thank you very much, Kevin.
But could I just add real quick?
Please.
Vice President Garamendi, just kudos to Kevin and his whole team for delivering a great project, working with the contractor and to the operations team as well. This is a, cross-departmental effort to get everybody on board. Admin services, as everything here is usually involves a lot of different people. Treatment plant operators down there were part of it. The distribution crew down there is part of it. That led by Kevin and Jimmy team. It's really great to see some of these projects we're taking off the list and we're seeing water quality improvements because of it. And so it's a great project, great job, guys.
Good job. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute bio break. We will return at 3:15. All right, welcome back to the Calaveras County Water District meeting. We're on item 4F. Discussion filed the district GASB's 75 disclosure for fiscal year ending June 3rd, 25. Accounting rules. I love it. Bring it on, Jeff.
You love this stuff, don't you?
No.
Well, I'll make this short and sweet because this is just a receive and file report. Under GASB 75, we are required to do a full-blown valuation every 2 years. That means look at the census, get complete list of all the employees, the age, demographic, same way with all the retirees, all the information that goes into that report. The off years, they just update it with some actual information along the lines of how we do on our investments and how did we do on our costs. So this is what they call a roll forward report. There's nothing really that comes out of it that you need to approve other than receive and file, but there are a couple of points of interest here. How much do you want me to dive into GASB and net all the other information? Or would you just like to look at this and say, oh, it's part of our process?
Board's desire. Want to learn about GASB? Or file it?
Or was there enough in the staff report to?
I learned so much in the staff report that I'm just full of new information about GASB 75. I'm not interested in GASB 1 through 74 or anything after 70.
One of the, Director Thomas, you look like you have a question coming.
I always have questions, but not in this particular time.
Okay.
And maybe just to point out for general benefit, GASB is the government accounting standards board.
Yes.
They issue rules from time to time that are become mandates for us to comply with. Some of them are quite burdensome for us to comply with. And this is the 75th one. But there were many before it and many after it. This is just one of many that we have to comply with.
Yes. And the key here is, why do we have to do an interim report? Well, that information is used in our audited financial statements. If you go through our audited financial statements, you will see that information in there, especially under the notes. And then it's tied back to our balance sheet. So this is important information that goes into our audit, which our auditors require. It's similar to what we have on our PERS pension costs. That is also included in the audited financial statements, the balance sheet, as well as the notes. So this is basically making us as transparent as possible to our ratepayers and also to our lenders. This is real important information. And one of the notes there, and I did some more talking with our actuarial, is the ADC, actuarially determined contribution. And one of the things that you can see in the report, it has gone up, but when diving a little deeper in this, our actual net OPEB liability has been going down significantly over the last several years. Now that ADC also includes what we call pay-go, because we pay ongoing retiree health costs. We do not take that out of our trust fund. And talking to our actuarial, he said, you may want to consider starting making payments to your trust fund. We suspended those once we changed up our retiree health program. And this year he suggested 58,000 will help us get us on track to be able to be fully funded. What in their terms, fully funded, which means that you can use a trust fund to pay your ongoing costs. That's at 145% of your net OPEB liability. So it's going to take us a while there, but the other component of this, and I know Director Robertson and Director Garamendi were not here at the time, we changed our program. It used to be 100% defined contribution. I'm sorry, defined benefit. I apologize. I'm stepping ahead of myself. Now we have a bifurcated system moving forward. It's a defined contribution where we make a contribution into the health savings account. For existing, what we call classic employees who opted to stay in, it's a defined benefit. But those defined benefit people are starting to be fewer and fewer, and there'll be more and more defined contributions, which will help lower our overall costs. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think the when we stopped making the ADC, that the actuarial defined contribution, it was even before we made that change. And it was just due to budget, the budget constraints. We were extremely tight budget. We were looking for ways to cover the costs that we had. And one of them was that ADC, which is something that it was prudent for the district to make those contributions in the past. It's why we're in a relatively strong position on this front now, is because the district did make made those contributions to the trust. But I think it was 2019, 2020, we had an extremely tight budget. We decided not to make the actuarially defined contribution, and we embarked on that change in the benefit, which is a big shift that will over time continue to decrease the district's long-term liability. And we're starting to see some of the benefits of that now. I think one important thing to point out here is there is a recommendation of at least starting to make a relatively small, compared to the past, relatively small contribution on an annual basis to the trust. I think it was $50,000-$60,000.
58, yes, sir.
So that we do make sure we're still moving towards that goal of at someday we will actually be able to draw from the trust to pay that, so it's not affecting the operating budget. And the sooner that day comes, the sooner we can move this off the budget. But relatively small contribution again to the trust. This is not a decision the board has to make today. We'll bring this back to the board when we do budget development in the spring, but it's something we're considering, that we start making small contributions to the trust.
Any public?
And we established this trust in 2008, my first year here. And I don't believe it. The only one that was here at the time Jeff was here at the time, and he'll remember this. The board had set aside some of the North Fork proceeds that remained, and we used some of that as seed money to get this going. So that was back in 2008, that they had set aside some of it in the early 2000s for certain things, and that was what some of the seed money was used for.
This is information. Do you need an approval or just need to pay us?
According to our resident expert here, there's no approval, just thank you, and you'll read it, and you'll promise me that you'll read it later along with the entire report.
I did find that some of the graphs are really quite interesting, and if I make it to 88, it's going to be a pretty good shape.
There you go.
These things decline. Very well, just out of habit, is there any public comment on this? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Good job, Jeff.
Thank you.
Good job on this. Thank you.
I hope I did it. I'd still be sitting on this floor. See? All right, we'll move on to old business, item 5A. Discussion action regarding the purchase of a transit mounted closed circuit television CCTV inspection system. Damon, we heard about this before. Bring us up today.
All right, so to recap, the district's current CCTV system is quite old, past its useful life, to need replacement. So the board approved placing an item in capital outlay in the June budget to replace this unit. The district then solicited quotes from 5 vendors, MME, Roush, UROC, Ditch Witch, and WECO. Ditch Witch and WECO did not provide quotes, and UROC submitted a quote after the collections team selected a preferred system, and the staff report was drafted, and that was submitted to the clerks of the board for the board agenda item. So subsequently, when UROC saw that agenda item come up, they emailed y'all with an attachment of the quote and expressed their frustration that they were given an opportunity to provide a quote. So the item was placed, the board placed the item on hold, and the district then went out and requested a demo from UROC. And we were able to get UROC up to our lock antenna wastewater collection system. And we also actually were able to get Roush, the other vendor that proposed or submitted a quote, up to the lock antenna system. So we were able to demo both.
Same day.
A couple days apart, like a week apart. But so our guys were able to touch, feel, put everything through its paces. And UROC and JDC, who is Roush, were also able to refine their quotes to make them more applicable to what the district was looking for, the operations team is looking for relative to the MME quote. So cut to now, ultimately, that did not change the opinion of our collections team. We still feel that the MME system is the most efficient, easiest to use, and the preferred, it's the preferred unit. It happens to be the most costly. It's 8% more expensive than the UROC unit, and it is a little over almost 2% more expensive than the JDC Roush unit. However, there's a couple aspects of the iBox system that our folks feel make it the top. And those are that you can just use one camera, one crawler to inspect 4-inch pipe and up. You don't need to use multiple cameras. That's partly why the cost increased on the quote for the UROC proposal, because additional equipment was needed to be able to inspect all of the pipe that we have out in the system. The Roush quote actually came down, and that's because originally an inverter was quoted rather than a generator for the in-unit office that sits inside the back of the truck. So the benefits were gained through the demos of both. But ultimately, considering that the collections crew, a 5-person crew, are the ones that are going to be operating this unit, refer to them when it comes to costs that are or expenses that are this close. I'm not sure if you're aware, but a lot of our wastewater collection systems are difficult, so to speak. So a lot of the collection system in La Cantena is in backyards, and having an effective system that's easy to use for our crew is really important, because we don't have a dedicated CCTV crew that does this every day. They're going to go from hydro cleaning, doing septic tank inspections, pumping wet wells, to then CCTV inspecting. And they need to be able to jump into something that's easy to use, that they understand, that isn't complicated. So the ask is that the board adopt the attached resolution approving the purchase of the iBox CCTV system provided by MME.
Questions from the board?
At one point, there was $100,000 difference. I see that UROC increased their bid to 307,000, was much more consistent with the other two. There's big difference in equipment? Is that still a multi-camera system?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I trust the importance of it. You can easily save $10,000. That $10,000 cost with a single camera, I can see how that can save a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And CCTVing is a component of our sanitary sewer management plan, and it's a key component, and it's really important that we complete that work. And frankly, due to the age and condition of the unit that we have now, we're kind of behind the 8 ball. So efficiency, ease of use is really of importance.
I'll move for acceptance of purchases.
Second?
I'll second the motion. I just want to make a comment that it's not often that this board tells anybody with a proposal to bring it back later, that you did exactly what we asked you to do. Pertinent information, and kudos to you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I agree. I think that was the right thing, and it gave everybody a proper bite at the apple.
Good deal.
No, and it was also done very quickly, brought it back to us very, very quickly, and you got these other 2 companies to get out of their comfort zone and get up here and do their sale. Good.
Thanks.
Great.
Are there any public comments on this item? Room or online? Very well, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4. Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you.
Reports, item number 6A, operations, Damon's. And leave.
Don't sit down.
Yeah, so this month's report does have some, I always hope, you never know if it's going to happen, but I always hope to have some unique items in the ops report that I can share. And I think this ops report has a few things that are compelling. and tried to mix it up a little bit. I think Scott, I took it to heart a little bit, but you were surprised that I knew how to use PowerPoint. So we moved over to Canva.
I wasn't surprised.
I'm just kidding. So we moved over to Canvas. So this is the first ops report in Canvas. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so cover page. We'll touch upon this in greater detail here. So right out of the gate, we love to start with our Jenny Lynn service area, just talk about the number of surface lateral leaks that we have. Just want to highlight in this image, so Connor Drive repair, you can see this is often what a service line looks like when it's leaking, is just misting water into the air. The image in the bottom left, you can see the kind of light purple, that's actually the service line with an old repair clamp on it. So then if you look to the middle of the screen, you can see the open trench. So what our staff did is they left the trench open. There's a replaced service line in the trench, and then up on the ground above the trench is the old service line. You can see how it had multiple repair clamps on it.
See, it's purple pipe, is that tertiary?
This is aged tough tube, a different version of tough tube. Do you know what this one's called, Pat? This purple stuff? Do you guys, everyone, I think we just all call it the same. Or, yeah. Oh, got it.
Sloppy primary.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. So more in Jenny Lynn. So this is a case of a somewhat complicated leak. So you have a driveway, concrete driveway. The district is sensitive to having to cut into concrete driveways. So there's a leak in a riser. And what a riser is it takes a service line that's very deep, and it brings the meter up so it's accessible at the surface of the ground. And so there's a leak on this riser. So you can see our crew are actually digging and working in the dirt on the side of the driveway so they could get in there and fix the riser. And then ultimately the image on the bottom left is what happens after they're done. So they're able to fix the leak, fix the riser, put the meter back, and put the property back in service. Okay, another continual topic of conversation operationally are fire hydrants, their operations, their maintenance, and their replacement. And so here's Oddfellow Street in Jenny Lynn, replacement of a fire hydrant, different perspectives of the image. This is all the old fire hydrant being uncoupled from the water line and then being prepared to be taken out of the trench. So you can kind of see, if you look in the image on the right, see the cut pipe at the bottom of the shoe of the hydrant. The image on the left is just kind of a flipped perspective. You see the open hole and the water main next to the pickup tube for the vacuum truck. And then the hydrant itself chained up to a crane, and it's about to be taken out of this location. And so here, the image on the right is the new hydrant being set in service and set in place. And then you can see the operating valve, brand new operating valve in the image on the right. So a lot of our fire hydrants don't have operating valves. So when they break, oftentimes we have to shut the main and put people out of service to repair or replace the fire hydrant. So whenever we do that work, we install an operating valve. And then what happens oftentimes is, in the past, they don't have sanitary aprons like the image on the right. So when our crews are done, they go ahead and put a concrete pad and make it nice and clean. So great job to the construction crew and the Jenny Lynn distribution team. There's a pretty compelling set of photographs. So this is what happens when a 6-inch water main explodes under pressure. It took out Dunn Road. And you could, as you walked on it, you could feel it settle, the road settle, because it just exploded in concrete. And this was, I want to say this was like Thursday at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, so just more images of the asphalt and then the water pushing debris and the underlayment of the asphalt down the road. This is kind of on the hillside. And so first things first, as is common in many of our service areas, you have to remove the old blasted rock from the original installation of the main before you can actually get to the main. So that's what's happening on the left. So you got to remember the crew in the hole that the water main break made for itself, removing large rocks that were blasted when it was originally installed. And then you can see the break in the image on the right. We're still trying to determine how this broke. This is off an offshoot of the A to B transmission line, the currently in service transmission line, not the new one that's being constructed. We're not sure completely why this portion of the main blew up here. Just various images of the break, and then images of the work. So you can see member of the crew getting down in there, pulls the top of the pipe out, which is in center image. And then the folks are continuing to work. You can see the lighting that the gap backs provides to the trench. And then you can see kind of just kind of to illustrate that oftentimes when you drive by a crew and there are folks standing there, they might look like they're not doing anything, but in this case, Curtis in the middle is doing a critical job with flashlights, because even though we have overhead floodlights, to be able to see actually what you're doing, it's nice to have highlighted light. So somebody that understands the work that's taking place is able to anticipate what you're going to need, and they'll light up the torque wrench, they'll light up the cutoff saw, they'll light up the pipe, and that's what's happening. So you can see image on the left, open broken pipe. Image on the far right, it's been cut out. And then here's the new pipe being installed. Once again, in the center picture, we've got flashlight person, Doug, and then you have somebody setting the torque on a torque wrench, because those clamps that actually connect the old pipe to the new pipe, they have to be set at torque. So we have to know exactly how they're set. The pipe is set upright, as is our engineering specifications. You need to be able to read what's on the pipe. And then our crews actually go back in and know locating wire to that section, so it can be found later. So then here are images of the backfill, compaction, and then discussion about what to do with the asphalt. Now, this is not a job that our paver could do, because this is broader than 9 feet. There's almost 13 feet in width. So we do work with a list of on-call contractors, and we were able to get them out in just a couple of days. Literally, this happened Thursday night. Monday, this was paved. And so hats off to them. That's the Brian Herring paving, I believe, did this work. And that is the after. Yeah, 270 feet, actually. Yeah, that's.
Quick question, Damon.
Yeah.
When we have a water main that breaks, we get that substantial road damage. Joe, customer drives into it, wrecks his car. Are we liable? Is that a problem for us at all?
Yes, that could definitely be a problem. Absolutely. So what happens in these kinds of situations, you can see that we'll set up barricades, and we'll position vehicles and cones to section off the area. And actually during this issue, Pat reached out to the county and works with the county road department of public works and lets them know what's going on. We set a detour based on their recommendation. I think I have an image of it here on the right. Yeah, we just basically sectioned it off. And then the county met Pat and members of the crew out there on Monday when the paving was happening, kind of took stock of everything that was going on, and then showed up afterwards and gave us a thumbs up. There'll be public comments.
I have a question about.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
yellow suitcase, light, what you said that is.
Pelican lights?
With the gap back?
Well, so we have lights on the pickup tube of the gap backs, and we also have these lights that are super handy, that are battery powered boxes, and you can telescope the light itself. And so we have those, and then we have let's see if you can see it. There's one right there in the image in the center. They're great.
So how many of those do we own?
I'm not sure. 4.
Okay, and you say the battery, they're rechargeable.
Yeah.
What a great
Yeah.
tool.
And then you can see the light on the tube of the gap backs there.
Did we use that to power the next electric vehicle?
You know, we attended a carb expo in Oakland last week. There are some little street sweepers who might be able to charge it. So foray into video here. So imagine you're the on-call person. You get a call at midnight for a water line break. This is kind of what you're gonna see, and this is what you roll up on. Like, So this is a service line break at a meter box, shooting up, 25, 30 feet in the air. It's midnight. You know, you were snug in your bed. Yeah, it's cold. Hats off to Nick and Eli.
I saw that in Yellowstone.
I bet you did. Yeah, exactly. So they were able to go out and make the repair, manage the pressure, which is step number one, and put people back on the roof. So hats off to the guys. So we don't have a ton of copper service lines, but we do up in Arnold, we have our fair share. And so this is an example of a repair of a copper service line. Kind of hard to see, but in the images on the kind of on the right side of the screen, you can see the copper a little bit glinting off the surface there in the bottom, right? And then the final repair there for plant on the rest of it, all for the copper. So here's as you guys have heard, so much undergrounding work is happening up on its pass, results in some service line breaks and some main breaks. Here's a 6-inch AC main repair. You can see often asbestos cement pipe, AC pipe, in the image on the right will do this, just break and like a perfect snap, almost like a shear break. And full circle clamp does the trick. So you get that, what is that, a 6-bolt full circle clamp in the image on the right, get in there, throw that on the main to the back. And so here's an example of that undergrounding work, whether it's our mismarks or it's a line that deviates from an area that we had no idea there was a line there, or whether it's a flat mistake on behalf of PG&E contractor. It always results in a heck ton of water coming out of the ground. You have 6-inch water mains. You can see the image on the left. The subcontractor for PG&E just kind of regarding their work there. And then the water flowing everywhere in the image on the right. And then our crews are able to get in there, identify what happened, and clean the pipe, make the cut, and then repair with a high max coupler. Those are those blue. They're really snazzy. They're just a 1-bolt coupler. You torque those to spec, and then we'll connect the water main to the, as you can see, the C900 PVC section that we installed to make the repair.
What's the PSI on a 6-inch line?
Well, it varies greatly. Depends on the type of pipe, but we can have anywhere from 170, 180 PSI upwards of 300 plus. So, yeah.
That variation is even in one system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, right. Kind of inherent to the foothills is we're going to have pressure variability. Ebbets Pass, we have hundreds of pressure reducing valves or pressure sustaining valves. And so this is an example of a pressure reducing valve, and they have pilot controls. And so in the pressure reducing valve itself, the image kind of where you can see the operator's hand is on that blue bonnet, there's a diaphragm in there, and the diaphragm floats based off pilot control pressure. So you can put water to the top of the bonnet, you can take water off the bonnet to allow it to float and move. So you go from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure by pilot controlling how the water sits on top of the bonnet. You need some electricity for that also. And so essentially what our guys are doing here is they're taking apart the pilot control. You see Bill in the center of the picture. He's unbolting that, and they're going to replace the internal components. And so there's a diaphragm. You can see kind of the image on the right after the bonnet has been taken off. There's like a set ring and a tube and a stem that the diaphragm can float on. And so you can see this image on the left shows kind of like there's water coming out of this small play valve, this pressure reducing valve, but we're not exactly sure what's going on. So you got to take it apart, and you can see in the center picture that there's a hole in the diaphragm. So it's going to equalize pressure across a diaphragm. So if you were up in an area of, variability, the elevation is all over the place, and you equalize pressure, that's a big deal. You can have to, if you have 150 coming in and you're breaking pressure to 50 going out, and then this diaphragm equalizes pressure, now you're going 200 down here. And so it's really important that our folks keep an eye on all of these pressure reducing valves and maintain them so that we don't blow hot water heat. We're not, that makes us really unpopular. So you can see the brand new diaphragm being installed in the image, in the center image, and then the operator's holding the old one and it's kind of bent it so you can see the tear. And often the pilot controls can allow us to get in there and make a repair before results become catastrophic. And then there's even the small control in the image on the left. You can see there's a small diaphragm in there that's taken out and then reinstalled. So this is PRV 96 of 100 plus PRVs of the system. This is, so Kevin's talking, today we're talking about the Arnold Wastewater Master Plan. Kevin and his team are also working on the Ebbets Pass Water System Master Plan. And one of the things that really helps inform the master plan is the hydraulic model associated with the distribution system. And in order to answer some questions that everybody might have had about how the system functions hydraulically, we need to conduct fire flow tests. And there's an added benefit to conducting fire flow tests is that we understand what the fire flow is for these fire hydrants. And if you fire flow test one hydrant, it acts as a surrogate for the 5 nearest hydrants to it. So it really benefits the fire departments as well. So this is kind of a multi-benefit work effort that our distribution crew and consultant that works for Kevin's team did a couple weeks back up on the pass. You can see they're usually using these digital pressure gauges on hydrants. So what will often happen is you'll have somebody flow testing a hydrant. So they'll they want to understand what that flow rate in gallons per minute is leaving the hydrant and what the pressure is when they're max flow rate. But they also have to, due to the variability of the topography of our system, make sure that we don't drop below 20 PSI anywhere in the system while we're flow testing fire hydrant, because then we were going to have to place folks under the low. We can't drop the system below 20 PSI. So that's what's happening in the image on the right. We're watching a hydrant of concern to make sure that we don't exceed that discharge rate. And functionally, that becomes the flow rate of the fire hydrant. So if you can flow that at 2,000 gallons a minute, but at 1,000 gallons a minute is where you get to 20 PSI, we're going to let the fire department know, hey, if all bets are off, obviously you're going to do what you got to do. But functionally, to keep the system safe, you need to flow like this. So the topic of how much does the fire hydrant flow can get really complicated really fast. Here's an example of what can happen when you flow a fire hydrant to understand its capacity. You have to find some place for all that water to go. And you can see that, luckily for a lot of these hydrants, it was in the forest. And then for some, our guys are super creative. They put down tarps so as not to damage the area. And then, I mean, this thing is ripping across the road. And so that, meanwhile, there's somebody at a few other hydrants checking the pressure. Folks are talking back and forth. You see Bill was on his phone and they're saying, okay, I've equalized on that pressure. What's that hydrant? And all of that information goes into the hydraulic model, which will be incorporated into Kevin and his team's master plan. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, that operator there is he's kind of going, okay, guys, like, when somebody going to call me and tell me to stop? Is this, the whole ground's shaking, everything's rattling, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of volume. Pat's there keeping things in check. It's quite the event. So hats off to everybody that was involved with fire tests. Here's another example of that creative slip and slide for the fire protection. All right, so example of our crew up in West Point's work. Doug, he does an excellent job up there. This is a service line to the McCulmy River Pump Station. So this is one that can cause definite concern when you see water flowing out of the pump station. You're not sure if it's the main, if it's the raw line. There's also a raw line and a treated line coming through this area. So Doug was able to get in there, identify the issue, and make a repair. These are 3 service lines connected to a meter cluster at Barney Way. Appears real heavy vehicle drove over the meter boxes and broke all of them, broke everything. So our crew came in after hours at the end of the day, made the repair, fixed all the services, and put everything back together. There's the finished product where all the meter boxes are set in. And then the construction crew. So this is kind of a deja vu all over again. This is a FEMA funded project that we completed in 2021, which was also funded by FEMA through disaster declarations related to atmospheric river storms. So the image on the left is silt and debris that was pushed into the diversion in the 2022-2023 atmospheric river storms that caused so many issues throughout the county. And so we applied for FEMA funding to remove that debris, and FEMA funded the work. And so the image on the right, you can see after removing how much debris was pushed down Bear Creek from this runoffs from the storms. You can see there's actually some boulders that are living inside the diversion there.
Speaking of atmospheric rivers, we are expecting almost 5 inches of rain over the next 4 days. Are we ready for it? Is it
We're ready. We're not excited though, but we're ready. Yeah.
Ops is not excited about it. Andrew's thrilled.
Yeah. Ops is not excited. Yeah. It's usually, yeah. And then, the stormwater protection implementation, right? So the image on the right after this work is done, I mean, just hats off to the guys. It's just super clean work. Fish and Wildlife was out there. We had what's called a 1602 permit, and they flipped that permit around super quickly. They were really happy with the work the guys did. And we are too. They did a fantastic job. And you can kind of get an image. I think there's a better image here of the diversion. So you can see the valve on the left, kind of which diverts the water from there's a little reservoir there, and it flows into our Bear Creek pipe, which goes down to our West Point treatment facility and the Bummerville regulating reservoir. This is something that we don't get to do every day, confined space training. So we actually have a day of classroom and then a day out in the field of learning about how to work in confined spaces, what's safe, what's not safe. A lot of focuses on gases that exist in the confined space and how you evacuate those gases before you go in, and then the device that you wear to make sure that you're safe when you're in the confined space. And so you can see different staff participating in different ways. When you're in a confined space work event, you have 2 folks that are outside, then you have 1 person inside. So the person inside is called the entrant, and then you have the attendant. I guess you can have multiple attendants, and they're kind of checking on the entrant the whole time, talking back and forth, whether it's via radio, just holler at each other back and forth, watching the person, and then monitoring and talking about gases and monitoring gas. So they'll have a gas sniffer, we call them. There's a tube down, in this case, a manhole, where you can gauge what's going on with the gases. And then you have an entry supervisor. The entry supervisor is kind of controlling the whole operation. So everybody that works in the field was able to participate in this training. Fabulous training with OSTS was the group. They did a great job. Our electrical team covers a vast and diverse array of work efforts. And, when the power goes out, oftentimes we call them because we look around and we're like, hey, the neighbor has power. That facility has power. My treatment plant doesn't have any power. What's going on? And the electricians drive out into the field at our property at Copper and say, oh, it's kind of hard to see, but the image on the left, there's a power pole just fell over. Power's out. And so they actually are a liaison with the PG&E troublemen. And they do a great job coordinating their work and making sure the site's safe, and working with PG&E to get us back in action as quickly as can be. Relative to some of the capital improvement projects that are happening, in this case, a Wallace tank replacement over in Wallace, our electricians need to understand the equipment that exists there in anticipation of replacing equipment to maintain. Is it going to have a different kind of float? Do we want to put telemetry on top of the tank? What do we want to do? And so that's what this is all about. You've got electricians that go out and they assess the equipment and then create basically a replacement list of equipment so that we can plan for that in the future. CAL FIRE support, there was a few dead and dangerous trees at the Arnold Wastewater Treatment Facility near a Tanwood Mobile Home Park. And so the CAL FIRE crew did a fabulous job coming in and taking out approximately 5 trees. You can't really see it in the image, but that sign says dead tree on the stump there. And then I do want to acknowledge that this is, you can see it a little bit better there, and that's the crew, and that's the tree fallen from CAL FIRE. This is the Vallecito camp. They do absolutely great work for us. A whole nother set of, you know, grubbing and brushing hands and feet. They do a lot of good work. And for many years, Ron Rose coordinated that work. And here's Ron in a throne that they cut for him on one of the jobs. He would coordinate with CAL FIRE, call them every morning, line them out with the list of jobs that we have all over the county for all of our facilities. One of the CAL FIRE chiefs made him that cup, and he's retiring next month. And so this will be his last ops report. So I just wanted to acknowledge him and what he did with CAL FIRE.
I'm glad you did that. Ron didn't want a resolution. He didn't want a presentation like that, but I mean, what a huge part of CCWD for a long time. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you're calling out there.
Yeah, he got a throne out of it.
Yeah.
Have we ever been able to hire any of those young men that come out of that program?
I don't believe so. But we have been able to hire folks from similar facilities. On board. Great report. Thank you. Just a call. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, this is informational, but we will have public comment. Again, this isn't a discussion, but if you'd like to ask a question, this is the time. Thank you. And if it comes back to mind, you know where he sits in the mornings. Thank you.
You have our emails too.
Right.
Was it about the main break?
Okay,
Getting
let's listen to Mike.
Mike Rogers, Valley Springs. Thanks again for, I always enjoy the photos and everything. And, you know, I have complete confidence and faith in your crew to do this work. But my question for you is, last year you had developed this dashboard. And do you have plans to bring the dashboard back on a periodic basis? Because the thing that, you know, I look at as a ratepayer is the incident rate. You know, how often are we sending crews out at midnight? Because that drives overtime, and overtime, you know, is a budget line item that can sometimes get blown out of water. So can you maybe comment on the dashboard?
Absolutely. So for those of you that don't know, we have in our work order system, we have what I call the dashboard, which basically breaks down all of the work orders completed by the different crews and whether they were it was emergency work, it was, you know, preventative maintenance, it was scheduled work, what the nature of the work was. And we can see that. Also, we can also push up against, we have a heat map of where the service line repairs have taken place or any of those issues. And for some time, we would provide snaps of the dashboard in the ops report. So I can absolutely do that for the next ops report.
Okay.
You know, and I know it takes a little time to aggregate that data, and maybe month over month, it's maybe not so valuable. It can be quarterly, would be helpful. And the other part is, you know, as we're making all these investments in infrastructure, so looking at it year over year is where it begins to become meaningful. If I'm sitting behind this counter here, that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, and particularly as a ratepayer, because, you know, it tells us, are we trending the right direction? Because we're making significant capital investments here. And I know the one bar graph that stands out was the one that was leaks, right? And these unplanned service events, not only affect, customer satisfaction, obviously, but costs, getting back to overtime. So if, as you begin to build the data and we can see year over year, then we can go back to the ratepayers and say, hey, this is a result of the investments that we've been making where we're reducing, they just use tank A and B as an example. We're replacing all those service lines. I'd like to think that the incident rate for leaks in that particular service area would begin to decline over time. So as you're building it up, showing it year over year is going to help these guys understand, are we moving in the right place?
Yeah, great point. And we also have some kind of representative projects that we can use to illustrate the benefit that way also. So yeah, I'm happy to work on that. Rather than, yeah.
Guys, to the board.
Apologies. I think the approach, is more about, it's less about what happened last month and it's more about kind of an overall, this is where we're going. This is, the broad stroke approach, which we can provide that to you. Yeah, absolutely. At your pleasure.
There are no more questions. Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate it. That was a full report. Item number 6B, General Manager's Report. Michael?
Okay, thank you. Last week attended Aqua State Legislative Committee meeting, and among other legislative proposals, so the State Legislative Committee meets very, very regularly over the course of the legislative session. And then we take a break at the end of the legislative session and then have a meeting in the fall to consider legislative proposals that Aqua might sponsor in the upcoming, in next year's legislative session. And the one I've mentioned it here today is because I just want to highlight Director Robertson, Director Garamendi will probably remember. I think Larry McKinney spoke at one of our recent finance committee meetings where he talked about his legislative proposal to provide a statewide program for low-income ratepayer assistance. And it's something that we've talked about a lot at Aqua over the years, and we've decided instead of reacting to other people's proposals, we want to put one forward that works for water agencies, because we're in a better position than a lot of other interested parties to understand the best way to implement a program like that. So Larry put a proposal forward to the state legislative committee that was approved. So Aqua has agreed to sponsor that legislation. And so the work now will start to, a work group will define what will go into that, the wordsmithing of it and finding an author and move forward from there. So we'll be engaged, heavily engaged in that discussion over the next year. So I think that's a positive development. Mountain County's Water Resources Association Fall Forum is coming up. So if you don't have the information about it, please let me or Rebecca know. We can forward the information to you. It's always a very good event. Once a year, Mountain County's puts together a really informative forum. They invite really high-level speakers and have a couple of panels on different topics that are really specific to Mountain County's water agencies. So I recommend.
What's the date?
That one is next Friday. Is that the 21st? 21st.
21st. It was going to start. I think a lot of the stuff that went out on it said it started at 10 because of speaker schedule things. We start at 9 now. It's going to be at the Ridge in Auburn. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll be on a panel there where we're going to be talking about that same issue of affordability. And we did it there a couple of years ago. So I'm glad Justin at Mountain Counties is bringing that issue back. It's a high priority for all of us. We participated in a virtual DC trip. And because of the government shutdown, most of the federal agencies were not available, but we met with John Watts, who was a longtime California water policy warrior for Senator Feinstein. And we knew him from his time there. And he is now, after a detour at Reclamation, he is now in Senator Padilla's office, and very productive meeting with him. We also met with a couple of staff members from Congressman Garamendi's office. We met with Congressman McClintock and staff from Senator Schiff's office as well. And as usual, Mia did a phenomenal job of setting up those meetings and teeing those issues up so we can advocate for infrastructure funding. And we talked to Padilla staff in particular. He introduced low-income ratepayer assistance legislation last year, forest management issues, hydropower relicensing reform. Is a broad range of topics, but all very productive meetings. Blue Mountain Energy Company, I want to mention it just briefly. This is the biomass project in West Point, and they are they received final approval for USDA funding, and then it had to go to DOJ, another step at DOJ, that they approved it, but they couldn't get the approval letter before the government shut down, and so they're anxiously awaiting that approval letter so they can close the financing and move forward with the construction of the project. In the meantime, they're battling with PG&E over an extension of time for the power purchase agreement, which is crucial. And so we're doing whatever we can to help advocate to persuade PG&E to do the right thing here, but it's kind of at a critical point. If they can't get an extension of the PPA, it really puts the project in jeopardy. So we're doing whatever we can to help them on that front. And then at the same time, they're trying to get the Arnold project in the queue, because the biomap project, if you recall, the board approved an amicus brief on the extension of the biomap program at the last board meeting. And but if that lawsuit fails, the biomap program will end at the end of this calendar year. So if we can get an application in and get a PPA prior to the end of the program in Arnold, then that's where we get one last crack at a biomap contract. So that's the work that we're doing with them right now. There might be some board action required on that front, so keep the board posted on where that goes. Andrew did a really great job presenting to the Board of Supervisors. Was that last Tuesday, the 28th? And then on the Groundwater Sustainability Agency and the status of those discussions with Stanislaus County and the governance structure of our GSA and where we go from here. And prior to that, we had a 2x2 meeting where two of our directors were met with two of the supervisors, and I thought a very productive and positive discussion primarily around those same issues. We talked about the 04 project as well, but it was really because of the timing focused on the groundwater sustainability issues. And then since then, I've reached out to Teresa. So the follow-up from that was for us to work out what the future for the GSA governance structure will look like once we separate from Stanislaus County. And so we're going to work on that at the staff level and bring it back to the boards for approval while meeting with Stanislaus County and DWR and the Groundwater Authority and everybody else that's involved in this. So we're making progress on that front. Let's see, there was an NCPA commission meeting I attended and met with Randy Howard after that. We continue to work on relicensing coordination and power purchase negotiations. We mentioned, so between Jeff, Ron, and Corinne, I don't know, I'm going to get the number wrong, but I don't know, somewhere around 55 years of experience at CCWD, all retiring before the end of this year. So, obviously that's always a challenge for us. We continue to see a lot of turnover. What Stacy warned me about when I first started was, I don't remember those numbers exactly either, but somewhere in the ballpark of 2/3 of our staff was going to be eligible for retirement within 6 months of that time. And we started to see that cycle of retirements ever since then. So super grateful for those employees and their long stays here at CCWD and what they've contributed, and working with staff to adapt to that and figure out how we move forward But in addition to those retirements, Michael Bear, our senior accountant, is moving on, so we will certainly miss him as well. He's been fantastic. But we're congratulate him for the new position he's moving on to. Now, let's see, we have finance committee meeting coming up on Monday. Agenda packet for that should go out on Friday. Our next board meeting is not till December 10th, where I believe as long as we can get it all wrapped up before Michael leaves, and a few items left that Jeff and I will have to take care of, but we should hopefully have our annual audit done and ready to present to the board at that meeting. And lastly, I'll be off for the next 2 days, but I will be available and reachable if anybody needs to get hold.
Michael just made some notes during the meeting, and we don't have to respond in any specific way right now, but see a time in the future that we could have a discussion to address concerns about the people that want evening meetings. I know we've been tried without success in the past, but we need to just respond and wait, let people know that it's tried in the past to respond, and meeting always empty.
Right. Yeah. So we can, I think maybe we'll respond directly to those folks that have asked that question and provide information on it. I'll talk to President Davidson about potentially bringing it back.
Okay, and then you mentioned Larry McKinney's proposal have gotten a nod from the legislature. When will we? I haven't seen the text of that proposal.
So we don't have bill text yet. It's we have, I could send you the concept that has been described. And yeah, so I can provide that for you. But
is it reasonable to assume that if that's successful, that we might not need to do anything on our own? Establish a more responsive low income assistance with ratepayers?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm glad you mentioned that. So I mentioned the next finance committee meeting, but we are going to talk about a couple of different things that get to that issue in our customer assistance program as well. I think at this point, it's a concept of a legislative proposal that will be developed into bill text, and an author will be located, but it's a long process between where we are now and even if that is a successful effort, the implementation of it. So I think we should still focus on what can CCWD do with the resources that we have for low income ratepayer assistance. And then if and when this effort is successful, we can adapt to that. But it's a long process, as you guys all know. Even if the legislative effort is successful, there's usually then year or more of figuring out how it's going to be implemented, and whichever agency is responsible for implementing it, funding it. So it's years out at best.
Looking forward. Gratified to hear that you're going to be talking about that finance committee.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And some the agendas are posted, but websites and arrows pointing to the fact that haven't closed our ears.
Sure.
Thank you.
Michael hit on the couple things I was going to talk about. One of them was the DC virtual visits last. And I think it went very, very well. And the other thing was the Mountain Counties Water Resource Association Fall Forum. And registration is still open for them. If anyone else, and it's Friday, the 21st in Auburn.
Who said that was in that group?
Absolutely.
All right. This is an informational item. Is there anything else?
That's it.
Any public comment on these items? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 7, board reports. Let's go down the line. Yep, we'll start. You report out for.
That's what we just did.
All right.
Oh, no, well, I was actually.
That was comments to the general manager.
I thought it was all from Mike.
Oh.
Yeah. Michael made it look like it was all the same thing. No.
Well,
it was
it's
very
close. And Russ actually hit my point. But I would like to discuss as a board the possibility of having publicly accessible meeting, once a quarter, whatever, but have some discussion on the board if we could have it. My understanding is I had asked for it to be an item on the schedule. Have you received an email like that, Rebecca? Well, let's put it on as a, unless you suggest, Michael, a better way.
You said he was gonna talk to.
Yeah, I'll talk to
I
President
know,
Davis
but
about it.
I think it's something that we need to discuss.
Okay.
You talk to talk to Jeff and he's got it. You guys can publish.
Else, anything you want to report on?
Those are the 2 reports. You didn't mention participate or witnessing the presentation of Utica last Monday.
Yeah, I missed that too. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, but I turn it over to you.
Well, there was a meeting at the Utica office last Monday, where Jessica Self did a very commendable and interesting presentation on the concept of the intertie that has been proposed here for a while or discussed, I'm not saying. To think that there were some questions about the whole concept, and she did a great job in clarifying answering those questions. So there was worthwhile meeting those board members. Us being, but anyway, that's probably the most important part of the most enjoyable thing that you're.
Thank you guys very much. As item arrayed, as Michael noted, next meeting is December 10th, 1 p.m. and then the meeting after that, January 14th at 1 p.m. That concludes our general meeting. We'll be going to closed session, report out. Later, we will open closed session in 5 minutes. So, anything else, Rebecca? Not at all. That's is there any final public comment? It's not scheduled, but.
Or public comment on the closed session agenda.
Thank you very much. Public comment on the closed session. Anybody here or online? Okay. Thank you very much.